Welcome to AudioPath, where we take a real look at making a living in music.
Ever wonder what it's like to make a living in music outside of the big industry hubs? We're here to pull back the curtain with raw, unfiltered conversations about the ups, downs, and everything in between.
Join us, John Kimbrough
And Trent Harrison,
as we share real-world insights, experiences, and stories from behind the scenes in the music industry. Whether you're an artist, audio nerd, or you just love music, we've got something for you.
This is AudioPath, where the hustle is real and the passion runs deep. All right, here we are.
Here we are,
Back with another episode.
back with another episode of the AudioPath podcast.
The AudioPath podcast.
That's right, we're back. What episode number is this, Trent?
Yeah, this is episode 10.
Episode 10.
Episode
We're here.
10 with Trent Harrison and John Kimbrough.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's you. That's me.
That's right.
We're here.
Here we go. So we've got a pretty, I would say, a fun one.
Yeah.
For this one. This one's going to be a little bit more technical, which I think is cool. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that are interested in that side of things. And we like to, just for a little context, we like to kind of shuffle around with our episodes on more of like, social things, business-oriented things, and then technical things.
That's right.
And then some of them are a blend in between. And so this episode, we've got a little bit more of a technical one for you, little gear-oriented and equipment, and just kind of like inner workings of what to prepare for a live sound gig, and then what to also, or how to prepare for potentially in a studio realm working in someone else's studio, which is very common. So
That's right.
Take us into this one, John. Tell us where would you like to start?
Yeah. So the idea here of what we're going to do is we are going to talk about how to prepare, really, or be prepared for, on my side of things, for your next live sound gig, on your side of things for stepping into somebody's studio, and how do we get from the point of we are hired to, in my case, I'm sitting there mixing, kind of like, what does that look like? What does the prep look like? And so, yeah, we're gonna do two things actually. I've brought my Pelican with me today.
Oh yeah, which is, if you're not familiar with the brand, is just a hard shell case that has wheels and handles and stores a lot of good gear.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. So we're gonna start with not the gear, and then what I thought would kind of be fun would be to kind of open my Pelican up and show maybe like, we're not gonna go super in depth with it, but maybe just show kind of like my like island tools, my desert island tools, where it's like if I only had maybe these 5 things or whatever, I could make it work, but I don't leave home without them. So that's what we're going to do.
Very good.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, I think to get started on the first side of things, Trent, let's just start with you. Let's talk about if you're going to go guest engineer somewhere at another studio, what do you do?
What do I do? Okay, so I would say there's a checklist that you would hope to follow to kind of prepare yourself for that situation. And there's a couple of caveats or a couple of different scenarios that I want to go over that are possible. And the list changes a little bit for each different scenario, so I'm going to try to cover a couple and see if I can do a broad overview for it. So if you have been hired to engineer in someone else's studio, then there's either a number of situations for what is actually going to be going on in there. There's either you are being brought into maybe a band's project studio where the band probably rehearses and does some, maybe some recording there on their own, but they're ready to do their record and they want to take the pressure off of themselves and let a producer really, take them to the next level, but they're very comfortable with their own space.
Right.
And I've actually done that one a couple of times. Usually it works out with a friend of a friend, but eventually you can get to the point to where someone might reach out cold call in that situation to you. and say, hey, I know you have, your studio of your own. It's really nice, but we're really comfortable here. Would you be willing to come to our space?
Mm.
Right. And so whenever I do those type of gigs, there's a couple things that I want to know ahead of time. One, what software is available? That's one of the main
Yeah,
things.
it's a big one.
I mean, if they don't have my main software or one of the main two that I like to use, then it might not be the right gig for me or for you, right? So that's something to kind of get answers for early on, to make sure that it's the right type of situation for you, right? Um, Another thing to kind of look into is like, okay, what are we doing here? We're obviously going to be doing some recording. We're going to be doing some editing, mixing. Like, you could take that back with you to your space if they insisted on wanting to be a part of that process and they wanted to do it there. That's kind of a negotiation point. Either you can try to do it in their space, or you see if you can get them to come back to your space. Could be locations dependent, right? So you're probably mostly going to be focused on recording and editing in this type of scenario. And so, what kind of microphones are available? What do they have? What kind of outboard gear? What kind of preamps? What kind of speakers are you going to be listening to?
Mm.
Now, there's a ton of different kind of studio monitors, just like there's a ton of different live sound monitors and so on and so forth. But so you may not be given or being in the position with one that you've worked with before, but that doesn't make or break it. You can adjust, right?
Mhm.
And so when you kind of figure all those things out, then you see what you got. Of course, I'm sure you're already familiar with the music you're going to be working on. I'm sure that demos have come your way at this point. And so you should be thinking about, okay, well, this is kind of what they've got, the gear that they've got, the tools of the job.
Mhm.
What is missing that I might like to have? And what should I pack into my Pelican
There
and
you go.
take it to
Take
the
with you.
gig? Yeah, exactly. And so microphones are probably going to be one of the biggest ones to take. You could take your own preamps, and that's common. Some people have like the 500 rack series
Mhm.
that's pretty portable. If you do a lot of gigs or you end up in this situation fairly often, it could be worth investing in 500 series stuff. I used to have some, but I've kind of moved away from it now, and I pretty much do mostly stationary stuff here at Hourglass at this studio. But it's a good way to bring some of your favorite tools that you are familiar with and know how to use very well, and what it sounds like in a small package, right?
Yeah.
Um, Cabling, I mean, you should maybe just talk about that with the place that you're going to go. They should have all the cabling that you need, but if there's a unique scenario, maybe DI boxes, you might want to take some of those with you. Instruments, I would assume they would have all of that, but wouldn't hurt to bring, one of your best guitars or basses as just like a backup,
Mhm.
you know? Um, those headphones,
Oh,
you
yeah.
want to bring your favorite or your most trusted headphones with you
Yes.
for
Yes.
sure. And that's a good way to kind of like, if you get to use the same pair of headphones, which everyone will gravitate somewhere. I use the Sony 7506s,
Mhm.
and they've been kind of my workhorse headphones forever. And I know what they sound like. I've mixed in them before. I've recorded with them, like everything. I know them like the back of my hand. So taking something like that with you that you know really well will get you pretty far, because then if you haven't been in the room before and you haven't used the speakers that they've got, you can at least trust what this sounds like to know if you're headed in the right direction.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, because that's going to be a big factor when you're thrown into a new environment, and this applies to live sound too, right?
Oh, yeah.
When you're thrown
Mhm.
into a new room that you've never been in before, you're kind of figuring out what it sounds like. You're probably going to, in live sound, you're probably going to play a mix that you know very well, and then see where you're at and what it sounds like and all that. Same thing with the speakers. In the studio, maybe even a little more important. What speakers what are they and what do they sound like? But if you don't know any of those things, your headphones can really save you.
They really can.
Yeah. So those are some of like the, microphones, preamps, headphones, DIs. Those may be instruments, but those four are going to be kind of like your essential package that you probably want to take with you. And then from there, it could be a little more specific depending on what you're working on.
Sure.
Yep. So that's one of the main scenarios. Now, there are other scenarios that I don't think I've ever been in this one before, but I know that it is pretty common, where you are renting a studio from someone else that neither you nor the artist have been in before. You are the engineer and producer, and you're basically just renting the space and everything that's there with it, right? So in that case, maybe you have been there. This is very common. Maybe you have been there several times, and you know the space well, and this is like you have your own at-home project studio or home studio, but you can't do drums, right? So you rent out this studio that has a bigger drum room to do all or most of the drums on all the albums that you produce, right?
Nice. Yep.
So a very common situation. And in that case, you're probably a little more comfortable. You've been there before. You know what they got. It's working for you. There's no one else, that's married to the place. It's almost like it's your space, right? Now, things may have changed since the last time you've been there, because if you're doing that, I guarantee that they're renting it out to other people too.
Yeah.
So I would show up early. I would try to, get the lay of the land, make sure that, everything is fired up and works before the band gets there, make sure that everything is where you need it to be. Who knows if something broke in between last time you were there that you were depending on. So those situations can, really put a hitch in things if you're not prepared.
It's true.
So there's that scenario. The only other one that I can kind of think of is that you could be renting a similar scenario. You could be renting a studio space that there is a house engineer there, but you are just producing. And so that's also very common. You could maybe be wanting to do some of the engineering yourself, but it just depends on the scenario. Maybe it's non-negotiable, but it's the best, studio space for the artist that you're working in, right?
Right.
So in that scenario, you got to approach it a little differently. You need to be very respectful of the house engineer and the equipment. I mean, he or she may be steering the ship completely, and you're just the captain that is, set sail this way kind of deal, right?
Good analogy.
Yeah. And so in that case, respect is going to be kind of the name of the game, because if you need to get along with that engineer, whether you're an engineer yourself or you're just a producer, an artist, you need to get along with them because they're going to eventually get you to your destination.
Yes.
Right? So there again, all the other things still apply. You want to know what you're working with and all that. But now you're dealing with an intermediary engineer to help you and your artist get the outcome that you are looking for.
Right.
So those are probably the three scenarios that I can kind of picture are fairly common. I'm sure there's something in between. But yeah, what do you think about that, John? Does that sound about?
Yeah. I've been in at least two of those scenarios. The most common one for me, studio-wise, would be the last one that you mentioned, where there's a house engineer and you're coming in there and you're essentially producing for an artist. And so I think the main point that I totally agree with, that you're really kind of like the point you're getting at here is just kind of know what you're getting into. And I would add to that, communication is massive, ahead of time.
Yeah.
I've kind of had my butt saved several times by shooting an email ahead of time and being like, hey, I'm coming with such and such band or artist or whatever. I'd just like to know kind of like what your equipment is. Can you send me an equipment list?
Mhm.
Like what's in your mic locker or,
Yep.
whatever, what console, is everything running through? What software do you have, et cetera? And, a lot of the time in that conversation, I've found that people, don't bristle up as much. Like a house engineer doesn't bristle up as much when I get there because we feel like we already know each other because we've been emailing,
Yeah.
sometimes calling, talking on the phone with each other. And
Yep.
so in my mind, that also helps kind of your artist. That helps your artist feel more at ease. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, these people have already communicated. I don't have to worry about any of this.
Right.
I don't have to worry about the technical side,
Right. They
So
have a rapport.
there's a rapport there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And so, yeah, totally agree with you.
Yeah, I would say that last one is kind of the situation that I find myself on the other side in here.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't rent the studio out to other engineers or producers unless I'm involved engineering the session.
Right.
Basically. So I have to be steering the ship and working the control room. Now I'm open for, if you want to move a mic or put something somewhere or whatever, like at that point I'm open for direction, but I want to be the one to
Yeah.
steer the ship, right?
Because,
Because this is my
yeah,
space, right?
exactly.
And I'm going to be able to do it 10 times quicker than anyone else that just comes in here and has no idea what the patch bay is like and where all the channels are and the preamps and whatever everything is set up like. When you rent this space as a producer and you bring your artists in, you get me included.
Mm-hmm.
But if you like, hey, maybe we should try this microphone or let's run through this preamp and then, no, let's try this preamp. Like I am 100% open to all of those things.
Yeah.
I'm just there to facilitate the directions.
That's right.
Yep. And that's something you got to think about once you get to having your own space that's desirable from someone else from the outside. You need to be very polite, cordial, like you're in a service situation.
Yes.
It's not much different than if you are the engineer and producer and you're just working with the artist. But if you have an outside producer, you got to kind of leave your ego at the door and let them kind of direct and everything. You actually steer the ship, but they're the captain.
Right.
Right? You're the first mate in this scenario.
Yes.
Right?
Such a good analogy.
Isn't this working?
Yeah. It's really good. Cool, man.
So that one's common for me, but like I said, there's a couple different scenarios that you can find yourself in, and communication is key. And then if you aren't sure if they've got it, bring it yourself if you have it.
Yep.
That's it.
That is a great piece of advice.
Yep. So that's kind of the studio side of things. Let's talk a little bit about the live sound world and how that what differences there may be and what you would do and bring in such situations.
Sure. There are multiple, probably countless iterations of scenarios.
A lot more than in the studio, yeah.
That, you could run into. And, we can kind of go through a few examples that are kind of common that I've seen and just kind of talk about that. But before we even do that, I think the important thing is really to understand as a live engineer, part of your job, aside from, making it sound really good, like getting a mix tiled in and all that stuff that is I consider kind of the fun parts of the job. There are tons of other things that kind of lead up to that.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to just be super, super adaptable.
Yeah.
That's kind of, if there's one skill that I see in engineers that I have looked up to, it is that. They're super adaptable, they're flexible, they're willing to roll with the punches and just figure out how to make it work. I mean, when push comes to shove, you just need to make sound come out of those speakers at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
I think there's a big push right now in live sound to like get the like most perfect, excellent snare sound or like whatever it is. And like, I'm all here for that. I love it too. I'm a nerd. I love making the perfect sounding snare, but it's weird. Sometimes, depending on the live environment, sometimes like you are so tired, like the last thing you think about is like stepping up to the console and mixing. So the reason I bring that up is because I think it's important to have those skills so dialed that by the time you actually get there, you're not having to put all of your energy
Right.
into it. So let's talk about that in the case of some scenarios. One scenario would be you are just kind of a hired gun, one-off audio engineer coming in to mix, at a club or even a festival or like whatever. So there may be a house engineer, like if you're going to, an actual location and it's not like you're setting this whole thing up in the middle of a field somewhere or whatever. And if that's the case, again, like if you can have access to that house engineer before you actually get there and you can try to have a conversation about what's available or whatever, that would be great. Sometimes, good venues will have like a whole sheet of what they have and they'll send it to, the band or whatever. And then sometimes it's just a matter of just getting that from the band. Sometimes, it can be totally different depending on whether you're actually working with one band or if the house is just hiring you in for the night. So it's kind of like you have to kind of feel out who you need to be communicating with to get the information that you need.
Right.
The information you need can vary greatly, but the main things that I always try to get ahead of time are, number one, what does your system look like? What console are you going to be on? If I can, like, what are your mains, like, or whatever.
Yeah.
But even more than that, at this point, and this may just be because I've worked on like all of the major consoles and I know them all pretty well at this point. But at this point, that's not even really a factor for me. Earlier on, it was. I really was like, I need to know what your console is because I need to brush up on it and get used to it or whatever. And sometimes I still need to do that. There are some consoles that I just don't work on that often anymore. But more than that, I'm trying to get inputs. I'm trying to like get the information about, okay, so like we've got a bass player. Does that bass player come in with like a cab that I need to mic, or is it like a DI situation? Is he going to be sending a clean signal and a dirty signal? Like dry wet deal. Like there are so many variations to how people can send things.
Yep.
The more information you can get on the front end, the better. Because one of the things that I like to do as well is, in this world of digital consoles, if I have all that information up front, I can get into an offline editor on my computer and I can pre-build a show file.
Yeah.
And
that's a big time saver.
Huge time saver, and it makes you not stress about it as much.
Right.
Because you just pop your show file in, patch your inputs and outputs, and you're ready to go.
Yeah. And that's a big deal. I mean, no one wants to be stressed at any point in time.
Right.
And, if there's anything you can do to alleviate some of that ahead of time, then you should take that opportunity.
Totally should. Yeah. So that's kind of how it works with band context for me. That's the information I want ahead of time. If I have that, I know I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
If I don't have that, I'm stressed.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm like, well, who knows what's,
Rolling in blind.
I did a show last week, man, and I knew no information. Nobody was telling me anything ahead of time. And I was like, well, it's going to be what it's going to be. I'd fortunately worked at this venue before, but I show up and it is literally 10 vocalists like that need mics.
Whoa.
10 vocalists, 2 acoustic guitars, a drum set, and a cajon.
Oh, wow.
And I would never have guessed that.
What a combination.
Yes.
Yeah.
What a combo. I mean, I had, I always travel with a few mics, fortunately, but this house, I mean, we barely scraped by. Like, I literally was like grabbing these mics. I'm like, this is not a vocal mic, but you're going to sing into it.
That's right.
This is what we have to do right now. Like,
here's a D6. It
like
might be a kick drum mic,
literally,
really?
Literally, I pulled a D6 and somebody was singing through a D6.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So,
That's awesome.
awesome's not the word I would use for it.
Well,
but
that's hilarious.
anyway, so like all that to say, sometimes you just have to make it work.
Yeah.
And, in the live environment in particular, there's such a focus on perfection that I'm just like, guys, perfection is great, like making something sound totally perfect. If you don't have access to certain things ahead of time, like you're never going to achieve perfection in your mix. Like, unless you are hired by a band, like you can advance your own stuff. You can pick like, this is the console I want to work on. These are the tools that I want to have, and you have like access to live tracks from them, and you can do a virtual sound check, and you can get things super meticulously dialed in. Like, unless you have all of that, you're not going to be and PA is a whole separate side of things.
Right.
Like you're probably not going to have like a totally perfect mix, but you can. I people that I've trained up over the years, I always tell them this phrase: live sound is a series of compromises. It's
That's
literally
pretty good.
it's
That's
a
good.
series of compromises. Like you're rarely going to have, unless you're like at the top of your game, you're in the top 1%, and like a band has hired you, like a well-known band, and you
Yeah.
can literally pick whatever you want. Like that's the goal for all of us as live engineers, is like to get there one day to
Yeah.
where we can truly just pick everything that we
Yeah.
want to have and work with. But it's not always like that.
It's not, man. I was
Yeah.
running a show the other night, and the artists were great. They're very talented, but of course, they had their own equipment. They
Mhm.
brought in their own amps, and this was their first time at our venue, and so I think they brought more than they needed,
Mm,
and I think they felt like because they brought it, they had to use it.
gotcha.
You know what I mean? And so I'm like, and it just was not. It did not sound good. Like the guy's amp was just harsh, and it was just not working right. It was like, I think it had some issues. Like
Mhm.
something was not quite right with it, and it was not a great scenario. And the problem, I was just like, hey, like, so they were playing acoustic guitars,
Mhm.
and but they were using their amps as their monitors, and we weren't running any monitors in the
Oh, yeah.
front. So
Uh-huh.
they were like, "We'll just use our amps as monitors, and you won't really need to put anything in the monitors." I'm like, "Cool, that's great,
Sure.
good scenario, right? No reason to double up." Um, and so, but it didn't sound very good to me, and so I'm running it from the outs of their monitors or their amps
Mhm.
into the house, and I'm just like, man, this is just not
Yeah.
really working. And so I would tell them, be like, guys, like, let me see this thing. Can we kind of tweak some of the settings on this amp, see if we can get it? It's just sounding a little harsh out here. Like, I don't want to,
Mhm.
I feel like I can't turn it up much because it doesn't, it's harsh. Doesn't sound that great,
Yeah,
right?
right.
In the nicest way
Sure.
possible.
Sure.
And they're like, oh yeah, feel free to go ahead for it. And I mean, I tweaked that thing as much as I could, but it just was not working right. It
Right.
just didn't sound right. And so I'm like, hey, we can do a split signal, and you can still use your amp if you want, if you turn it down a little bit.
Mhm. If you turn it down.
Yep. And then I can run to the house, and then I have full control over the signal and whatever I need to do for the house to be right. And then you still have full control over the stage, and you can do whatever you. And they were fighting me on that. They're like,
Mhm.
but I want this to be I want people to hear it. I'm like, I don't think you do.
You really don't.
Yeah, like I know you
Yeah.
are tethered to this situation and you're not hearing what's out here, but it is not really great.
It ain't
man.
it.
It ain't it,
Yeah.
And it was just way more complicated than it needed to be.
Yeah.
And there was lots of compromises that
Mhm.
had to be made.
Yep.
Eventually, I was able to do that scenario and just split the signal and do my own thing, but it was hard to get there,
It can be, yeah.
I mean, I was like trying every time they would suggest something, I would do it. I would try it, but it just never. I was like, can we just go back to plan A?
Yeah. Plan A.
Yeah.
My plan.
So, you never know what situation you're going to run into and who you're running into it with, right? So
Very true.
you got to be ready to pivot
Yeah,
at
you do. You do.
at a moment's notice.
Yes. So that's, I mean, without labeling these scenarios or whatever, that's a big one. Just like be willing to compromise on things and be flexible. And like the other side of it is sometimes it's important to know. I mean, well, let me back up. It's really important to know your console, period. Like whatever console you're going to be on, you need to know that thing like the back of your hand. And there's several ways to do that. I mean, there are videos, sure, like for most of the major consoles, but I like reading a manual.
Mm-hmm.
I like pulling a manual and just like diving in and just knowing exactly what the console is capable of. And that's been really helpful for me over the years. I still do that. I still pull manuals like constantly for things and like read through them. And so anyway, that's a big one. I have some real horror stories of having shown up And, I'm effectively like in these scenarios, I'm kind of like the house engineer. So I'm like hired in to do most of the bands or whatever in a festival scenario. But then sometimes the band will travel with like, their own
Right.
engineer
Mhm.
or whatever. So they have a guest engineer. And in that scenario, I'm really just there to facilitate like, hey, like here's where stuff is plugged in. Here's what the patching is. And like, it's your console
Mhm.
at this point. Like when that band steps up, it's on you. But I've been in a lot of scenarios where, and it shouldn't be this way, but it is, but where those engineers step up and they don't know the console
Right.
and
They're fumbling.
they're fumbling.
Mhm.
And then, you know, that that just makes everybody look bad.
It does. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
like and
It
it makes
slows the show down, which is not good.
yes, and it makes your band sound bad. And anyway,
Yeah.
that can be kind of common too. So big takeaway as far as live stuff: know your console super well, know what gear is going to be there ahead of time. Know your tools, just like anything else. I mean, the thing with live sound, especially for what I do now, where I, fly a ton and travel all over the place, I don't have the luxury of taking a lot of my own gear.
Mhm.
So I need to know how to use a whole lot of different types of gear and train up on those and not feel like I walk in and I don't know what I'm doing. Now, sometimes I come across a piece of gear and I've literally never used it before.
Yeah.
And that's where that adaptability is extremely helpful. Hopefully somebody who's there does, and you can ask them a lot of questions. Don't feel afraid to do that. I mean, I've seen some young people who feel like they have to be super confident, and if they don't know how to do something like in wireless workbench, like as an example, that freaks some guys out I've seen, and like just ask some questions.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not gonna, you might think, oh, well, I'm gonna look stupid if I don't know this thing, but
Right.
no one knows everything all the time, right? And there's
Exactly.
nothing wrong with, admitting that you've never used something before and asking someone who has.
Yes.
Right?
Totally.
All
Yeah.
right. Good.
So yeah, those are kind of my pre-checklist things for live engineering, I would say.
That's a good list. So now, why don't we pull out some things?
Let's pull out some things. Okay. So like I said, I've got my Pelican over here, and I'm just going to open it up real quick. All right. Good old Pelly. Okay.
There it is.
And, there are so many different things in here that I've added over the years. And, I'm going to try to just pick like 5 things that are kind of ride or die for me.
Yeah.
It's going to be really hard.
There's probably 50 things in this thing right
Yeah.
now.
That I have not thought about this ahead of time intentionally. So I don't know what the 5 things are going to be, but I know what 2 of them are for sure. So we're going to start with those.
Okay.
All right, here we go. So first thing I'm going to pull out of here is a set of gloves.
Oh, interesting choice.
Okay.
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about this. So so these are called Dirty Rigger gloves, and they are they're just the best. They're just simply the best in my opinion. They're made in England. They are super, super durable. You can use your finger like on your touchscreen still through
cool.
these, which is great. My hands get really hot and sweaty on load in and load out, and these I don't sweat in these. I don't know. It's magic. There's some kind of magic sauce. So anyway, work gloves. Now, why are these my first choice? Because a lot of people who are newer to the industry don't think about the fact that a lot of your job is load in.
Yeah.
Like a lot of your job is load in and load out. And I worked without gloves for a while, and then I kind of broke down and got them and realized that I had been beating my hands up for years.
Yeah.
Just the pushes, with these, if you're pushing a PA in, all these boxes or whatever, or an LED wall or whatever, those things are heavy, man.
Yeah.
They're heavy. And anyway, just trust me on this.
Just get a little bit, especially I guess if you're in an outdoor festival situation.
Mm-hmm.
Think about some of those cases been sitting in the sun.
Oh yeah.
And they're hot.
Yep.
Hot.
Hot.
And then if you got to pick it up quick, you got to endure that heat.
You do.
And move it.
Yeah.
So if you have gloves, you're okay.
I'm telling you, this is the first thing I pull out of my Pelican the minute I show up.
Nice.
Because there's going to be a load in, whether I'm doing, an outdoor festival or loading in a ballroom for corporate AV or whatever, there's always a ton of load in. And so There you go. So those gloves,
Cool.
for sure. So this is probably my next one. This is a microphone. And basically, a lot of guys carry around a 57, SM57.
Yep.
This is basically a 57 that has a switch on it. This is the Unidyne 3 or the 545 SD, which was actually the precursor to an SM57. It basically sounds like a 57 with like a slightly different EQ curve. And I carry one of these around because you never know when you're going to need to have a mic with an on-off switch to use as a talkback microphone, or you never know when you're going to need to like, throw this on a bass cab or whatever. You can even use this as a vocal microphone. Like there's not a pop filter in here, but in a pinch, like it'll totally work for that or whatever. I mean, it's just a good idea to carry around something like this.
If you got 10 singers,
yep,
you might
this came out of the case the other night for
bet.
sure. Somebody had to sing through this thing. So anyway, yeah, and this is very common. Like just have a 57 with you or some kind of microphone that you can use, when you're in a pinch and when there's literally nothing else. So next thing for me for sure is an audio interface. So this little guy here is it's the Evo. What model number is this? The Evo 4. And for years I carried around one of those little like Scarlett Solos, like little red box kind of deal. And anyway, I switched from that to this Evo 4 because of the fact that the Evo 4 has not like on the Solo, you just have an instrument input and then you also have a mic input. These are both multi ports. So you can have two mic inputs, which is great. Especially for if you're like, I do a good bit of system teching as well. So like if I'm running Smart, I need 2 mic inputs in order to do the transfer function within Smart so that I can tune a PA. Has 48 volts, like all the stuff you would expect, but comes in this nice small size. And honestly, the preamps on this thing are super, 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 super clean.
All right.
And like you really wouldn't expect that. I think this thing cost me like $120. It's USB powered, so like you can plug it into your computer and it doesn't need additional power. There's a headphone jack on it as well. And
wow.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that thing.
Yep.
Cool.
Evo 4, tiny little box. They make an 8 version. I just don't need that. Typically, all I really need for doing what I do with this, as far as system teching, is I just need 2 mic inputs. But in addition to that, sometimes, you need more outputs from your computer. So like this, I've also run tracks through this in a pinch for a band that forgot to bring an interface. Anyway, it's just a really good idea to carry a small interface that can do multiple different things.
That's a good one, yeah.
Yep.
Not the first thing on your mind, but definitely I can see many scenarios where it could come in handy.
Yep. You got to have it. You do.
Nice.
Okay. So that's that. I think that's 3. I'm going to try to pick 2 more.
All right.
Okay.
It's getting harder and harder.
I probably should have done this one earlier, actually. So this right here is a newer tool to me, but it's become a tool that I just won't leave without. So this is by a company called Sonect, and it's called the Sound Bullet. And this little guy right here can do
what is this?
So many different things. This is a cable tester. It also can generate signal. You can send that signal out through like the XLR. You can send it out through, like the headphone jack or whatever. It comes with this kind of dinky but cool little converter kind of deal.
Yeah.
So you can like put it in here and you can send that like through a DI to make sure that your signal is flowing correctly. Basically, like for doing very quick signal flow checking, this is just the move. It can tell you whether something has 48 volts going to it, so you don't fry something. It's just downright awesome. Like, and you can choose like the type of signal. So we can do pink noise. You can tell it where to come out. It's actually got a little built-in speaker, so you can test the other way. You can see if signal's coming out. So like,
what?
So there's just some pink noise. So I could send that out, and I can tell it to send it out through the speaker, through here, or through the 1/4 inch. So you don't hear it now because it's sending out there. It also does a sine wave.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, and it literally will just like tell you all of your pins and whatever. It's just,
what?
This thing is sweet. Because like if I show up somewhere and they don't have like a patch list built or something and I have no idea. Yeah.
Let me see it.
And
I've
I
never
have
seen one of these.
Yeah, and if I have no idea where things are going, that allows me to hand that to an A2 or even just a stagehand or whatever, have them go up to, the stage inputs, pop them in, and I'm looking at the meters on the console and I'm landing stuff. I'm like, that's input number 3 on the stage, which is coming in input 1 here, whatever. And I'm literally just like patching quickly.
Yeah.
There's no more like
That's so cool.
Trent is fascinated.
This is like the Swiss Army knife
That
of live sound.
that
right
is
here.
the audio engineer's Swiss Army knife.
This thing can do so many things. So
really
cool,
can.
man.
And I discovered that they're relatively new. I mean, I think the
gonna
first
say.
generation came out like a year ago as of this filming.
I love this. Yeah, I've never seen one of these.
But yeah,
Very cool.
I bought it like at the end of last year, and I can't believe it took me so long to buy one of these. So this probably should have been way closer to the front of the list, to be honest with you.
It's in the top 5 for sure.
It's definitely in the top 5. Okay, I've got to pick my last one. Gosh, what do I pick? Okay.
Choose wisely.
Okay. There's so many other things in here. I've got like a small Wi-Fi router that like I pull out constantly. Okay.
What's
This is the iFixit Toolkit.
Oh.
And this is basically just like it's like a screwdriver. It's got a little lid that you can like hold screws in or whatever. And it's got like every bit ever, including like security bits.
Whoa.
So like the little bits that can be really hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of like a cool little thing. So this like will attach to the front of the screwdriver and like you can curve around things and then like, do whatever you need to do. But like if things go wrong and you need to like pop something open and like get after it, I mean, this is getting you in.
That's smart.
Period. So yeah, I mean, this is just I pull this out way more often than I wish I had to.
Yeah, that can be show-stopping things, and then the show can be back on.
Exactly.
With that thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Things break.
That's right. I've got a network switch in here, just a dummy switch that's PoE, so it provides power to whatever's plugged into it. Constantly feel like people are asking like, hey, do you have a switch, man? Like I forgot to bring an extra switch. And so there's that. The Wi-Fi router because one of the things that's not in here, there's a whole slew of things I keep in my backpack as well, like an iPad Pro that I use to, do wireless mixing from, and I use that Wi-Fi router to connect to the console. My laptop, obviously, for like playback, whether it's QLab or, whatever it needs to be, and then my in-ear monitors. So those are also real ride or die things. Like I have to have those with me to the point where they're in my backpack. They're not in my Pelican.
Yeah.
Pelican, I typically kind of just use as like tools only. So just the tools are going in here.
Makes sense. Yeah. You'll need to get in there for something, but probably not everything every time.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
That's really good. So I think, we want to tell people that we're going to do a little more of an in-depth dive into John's Pelican, and I may come up with a studio kit as well. And we're going to have those more like detailed videos on our Patreon.
Yep.
And also for YouTube channel members.
That's right.
Yeah. So if you're really interested in this stuff and you want to know like what are some of the more, nitty-gritty items that could save you in a live sound scenario or a remote studio session, then check us out. Check us out on Patreon and maybe think about becoming a channel member.
Yeah.
And might as well go ahead and, ask for a little like and subscribe if
while we're here.
If you're feeling generous. I think we're getting close to wrapping up this episode anyway. So I hope you've enjoyed our kind of dive into pre-show, pre-remote studio checklist.
Yes.
And kind of what to bring, what to be aware of, and what to look out for. And so follow us on the socials. And if you want more information, we've got it on audiopathpodcast.com.
Yep.
And reach out to us. Let us know, what do you have in your Pelican?
Yes.
We would love to know that. And let's get a conversation going.
Totally, man. Totally. Yeah. That's really the thing. We want to hear from you all. We love connecting with people. We love when y'all reach out. And so please do that. Yeah. Let us know what you want to hear, topics that you'd want us to cover, whatever. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, What do you think, John?
I think that's probably it.
All
I
right.
think we're good, even though I have an entire
Oh, well,
pile
yeah.
of stuff that I could talk about here.
Well,
So
we'll save that for
we'll save it.
another time.
Another
Yeah.
time. Cool. Well, y'all, thank you so much for tuning in, listening to this episode. Hope you're enjoying it. We sure are.
Yeah.
And thanks for following us, listening to us. And until next time,
Steady the path.
steady the path.